everyone, my name is Farmer Rhonda and today we will be doing Stories in the Stables. Today we will be reading Fabish, the horse that braved a bushfire by Neridah McMullin and illustrated by McLean. Fabish was a handsome grey racehorse and his jockey wore blue and white stripes with red sleeves. Fabish wasn't the fastest horse, but he was brave and always tried his hardest. Fabish no longer trained with the racehorses in the early morning. They were eager to race. Their hooves pounded the soft soil on the track, sending clods flying through the air. They galloped swiftly with their nostrils flaring and chests blowing. Now Fabish was in charge of the yearlings in a paddock far away from the stables. The youngsters were a wild bunch. With their tails up high, they pranced and tossed their heads and sped around the paddock, skidding as they chased each other. Fabish snorted and stamped his feet so they would return to him. He showed them what was expected of a racehorse. When summer came, the sun scorched the land. Withered brown grass crunched underfoot as the horses returned from track work. Water troughs hissed as they refilled. The iron roof of the stables ticked and creaked. After the horses had been hosed down, groomed and fed, they rested in the shade of the trees. They swished their tails at flies and stomped their hooves. That summer, everything living was hot. One afternoon, a hot, blustery wind blew up. It made the yearlings flighty. The sun bore down and the temperature soared. Then Fabish smelled something. Smoke! The yearlings skidded and paced in their paddock, their spindly legs quivering. Fabish nickered to calm them and scanned the skyline. The trainer appeared in his truck and called to Fabish. "You've got to get out of here!" He threw open the gates to the laneway. "Take care of the boys! Go, now!" Fabish neighed to the yearlings, and with smoke stinging their eyes, they galloped away. A deep, menacing rumble came from beyond the hills. The trainer hurried the racehorses into the stables. He crammed 3 or 4 into every box. They huddled together, wide-eyed and trembling, while everything rattled and banged. Wild winds thrashed leaves and branches. The roar of the bushfire became louder. Billowing smoke turned the day into darkness. Balls of smouldering embers struck the ground like a hailstorm. The farm was ablaze and the sky was on fire. Inside the stables, the trainer kept checking for spot fires. He pushed the horses aside to beat out flames with a wet rug. The horses didn't panic. Most stood completely still and let him work through the long night. The trainer continued, moving from box to box, talking softly to his horses all the while. And then the skylights blew out. This is it, he thought. But with a deafening howl, the fire front passed over and tore off into the distance. Early next morning, the trainer doused himself with water and peeped out of the stables. There was a fog of thick smoke and ash. With a wet horse rug, he smothered the flames by the door and gasped at the sight before him. Trees were broken and blackened, and the soil was baked hard. The tack room and machinery shed was a pile of twisted iron and white ash. The wind had dropped and the sound of crackling embers filled the air. The trainer's throat stung. His hands were blistered. The soles of his boots had started to melt when he found an old truck that hadn't been burnt out. He headed off to the far paddock. The farm was charred and desolate. Fences, cattle, birds, all gone. He parked in the laneway and let out a shaky breath. "What am I doing here?" he thought. The yearlings didn't stand a chance. And Fab was such a fine old gentleman. A smoky haze clouded the air and he couldn't see very far. Yet he thought he heard something. Could it be them? Rhythmic thudding footsteps were coming closer. "Fab! the trainer called out. A croaky neigh called back. Clumping through a carpet of ash, a sooty grey horse appeared. Fabish held his head low and rumbled a slow neigh. In single file behind him came the 7 yearlings. Good boy, Fabish! You've brought them all home! The horses stood quietly as the trainer ran his hands over them. There were no burns or cuts, not even a single singed hair. Come on then, he said. Come on home. He drove slowly, watching the horses as they followed Fabish, their heads low against the tail of the horse in front. When the yearlings whinnied, Fabish neighed softly back to them, and down the blackened hill they clip-clopped home. The end. Isn't Fabish such a brave horse? This true story is really inspiring. What was your favourite part of the story? See you later, everyone!